Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us today for Deborah Kobylt Live. I've got two very exciting guests in the studio with me today, Zoe Winkler Reinis and Elsa Marie Collins. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And they are the co-founders, along with your sister, Yolanda, with This Is About Humanity. And basically, it's a movement to raise awareness on asylum seekers and families that are separated over at the border. This is very interesting what you ladies have done. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
There's a lot, obviously, always being talked about in the news about the border, and people have all sorts of political views. But this is not about politics. This is about humanity, hence the name. So I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Why did you decide to do this? I mean, you were motivated by the news pretty much, right?
Yeah, I think when I have 3 small children. And when I first saw the news of families being separated, and there was a mother speaking to a Border Patrol agent and her daughter looking up at her, the daughter was probably 2 years old, and the mother was crying and the daughter was crying. And that image was just like ingrained in my head and I couldn't get it out. And so I would try to go on with my day and I would see that little girl and I would see that mother. And in that little girl, I saw my own children. And in that mother, I saw my own face. And it just it stuck with me, and I was losing sleep over it, and I was just imagining what it would be like for my children to be taken away from me, and for me and also for my children. And I was thinking to myself, like, I don't know that I would survive. And these people that we meet at the border are actually some of the strongest people I've ever met in my whole life, because I don't think I would make it, honestly.
Which side of the border are you on?
I am on the American side.
Okay.
But I go to the Mexican side frequently. And I'm talking about the families on both sides. The families that are here that don't have their children here with them, or the children that are here that don't have their parents with them, or that are in this like limbo period where they're just waiting to know their fate, and the families that are in Mexico in shelters. So I knew that I had to do something. I had no idea what it was going to be. I have no experience in this space. I was a teacher for 12 years, and I was planning to just be a stay-at-home mom.
Hence, you love kids, right?
Yeah, and a stay-at-home mom with 3 boys is a job in itself. So,
tell me about it.
But I knew Elsa because, she is just a force, and I knew her husband from growing up. So when all this stuff started happening, I noticed Elsa on her Instagram was posting saying she was collecting some things. And I reached out to her and just said, like, I'm in.
Let's
Tell
do
me
something.
what to do.
Let's do something.
It.
So
Yeah.
let's take it from there. Tell me, Elsa, now you were born here, right, in the U.S.
Yeah.
But you grew up over there, right, in Tijuana?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I lived in Tijuana until I was 16. I crossed the border every day to go to school in San Diego. And then I went to junior high in Mexico. And so to me, it's not even being on one side or the other.
No.
It's just a region. It's just where I grew up. You know, you want to go to the movies in San Diego? Great. You want to eat, lobster in Tijuana? Amazing. So for me, it was really kind of that moment where I was seeing people who wanted to donate things to these families, and me understanding that region so well, and my sister who has spent her entire life working on the border, understanding that region and understanding that it wasn't just that easy to say okay, I'll just collect things and find a way to get it to them.
What's the biggest need that you were collecting?
I mean, at that time we were collecting things for kids who had been separated. So toys, art supplies, stress balls, blankets, stuffed animals. I mean, it was really just sort of saying let's get a list. Let's figure out the best way, the most efficient way to get it to these families. And so when Zoe reached out, she said, I don't know what you're doing, but I want in. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing either. All I'm really trying to do right now. But then what ended up happening was we had so many donations. I mean, I envisioned putting something in my trunk and be like, here we are driving. And instead I was I am
overwhelmed.
Yeah, I was. We
had over 500 boxes by the end of 2 weeks. And
where did you take it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. All this stuff I know somebody who does something, Lunch on Me. in downtown LA. There's just no judgment. She's just bringing lunches, and it's grown into something enormous. No judgment. And same thing. She said she figured a couple of lunches, and she'd drive down in her station wagon, and next thing she knew, she had hundreds of them, of lunches, and then next thing she knew, she had companies calling her.
I think what struck Elsa and Yolanda and myself was that the way everybody communicates these days is on social media, and I am private on Instagram. So I was just posting to the people that follow me, and Elsa is private as well. So she was just posting the people that follow her, and within that period of just not even reaching out, to like people that we don't know, we had collected over 500 boxes, and my friend, who my son goes to school with her son, said, we were like, we can't get this down in our car. She is an interior decorator, and she said, I'm going to give you my U-Haul and my driver, and you guys are going to take these down there. And so when
U-Hauling down to the border.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. You're probably like, wow.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we said like, hey, we're going to be sort of separating all the donations that we got and organizing them. And then all of a sudden at Elsa's house, and then all of a sudden there was like a news crew randomly. And there was, 30 people of our friends, kids. Elsa set up like a station outside for kids to be writing letters to the children and drawing pictures. And then the adults were inside sort of like organizing and separating diapers and toiletries and where was going where. And because of Elsa and Yolanda's connection to this region, we were able to actually get into some places that nobody else was getting into at the time. And so that was sort of where it all began.
Okay. So where did you go? You're in this U-Haul filled with stuff.
Oh, no, we also had a bus. We had a bus full of people. Elsa, you tell.
Okay. Wow. But where did you go? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
We, on our very first trip, we started off going to San Diego. Once we saw the interest, I said, I wonder if people would actually want to come and see, right? Because as you mentioned when we were talking earlier before we started the podcast, in this day and age, the way people react to news, it's like, well, if I don't see it, is it really happening?
Yeah,
right?
which
They
I want
need
to
have that sort of like frontal assault really on their senses. So we took a bus of like 35 people. They had no idea what we were doing.
Neither did we.
No, it sounds that way. It's like, just get on the bus. We're going to figure it out when we get there, which is how,
Yeah, so I called my sister and I said, listen, we're going to bring a bus down of people and we want to get a sense of what's happening. And so at that time, the day we went down, there were 4 high school teachers who were on a hunger strike. Because a lot of their students were undocumented and were being rounded up by ICE. And so we visited these teachers who had been on a hunger strike. This was like their 6th day. We also heard from families who had been separated, who came to kind of give their testimonials and say, this is what happened to us. I mean, eating breakfast and parents going to buy something at the grocery store and never coming home and leaving 4 kids alone. So it was really sort of giving people a firsthand experience into these are people's lives and this is what's really happening. And it's not just something that you're seeing on the news and can
because
kind of be away from.
The news makes it so chaotic. And of course, there's the other side that's saying, well, they shouldn't be here. What do you say to that? And how did they get here?
Well, so I think a lot of times, one of my main goals is to really do a better job of educating people on this concept of, why aren't they doing it the right way, right? Like, that's right. I want to understand, like, they should be standing in this line. And so what people really need to understand is that asylum law has been in place since, the 60s. And it's an internationally recognized law by the United Nations, by the United States, something that we have had in place for many years.
Right.
And so when people come to seek asylum, the way you do it is you come and you present yourself at the border. So you literally have to go to a port of entry and go up to a Border Patrol agent and say, I am seeking asylum. That is actually the right way to do it.
So what's happening?
What's happening now is we're preventing that access from even happening. So we're preventing people from doing it the right way. So they can't even approach a Border Patrol agent to seek asylum. And then we have also made some slight administrative changes whereby instead of being able to wait for your asylum case here in the United States as we used to do it, we are now sending people back into Mexico, whether they're from Mexico or not. So
Right,
a lot
because
of people
they're streaming through Mexico sometimes
from
just to
Central America.
get out of where they were.
Exactly. So now we've sent over 40,000 people back to border towns in Mexico, not very safe towns, very vulnerable populations, women, children who don't have home.
And they're all just staying there
And they're all just waiting.
in Mexico.
In Mexico.
And what are they doing? What is the Mexican government?
Also
I can't
something
even
that's
imagine.
happening that one of the speakers that we had at our dinner, he went and did say to a Border Patrol agent, I am seeking asylum, and he was put in a facility for over a year, which is basically a jail.
Yeah, a nice
Where?
detention
In a nice
facility.
detention
in
facility.
outside of Los Angeles.
Right. He was 14 at the time. He was 14 from El Salvador.
Yeah.
And so
So I think that the truth of the matter is,
and he did it the right way.
yeah, the right in
so
quotation
now
way.
It's such a scary, out of control situation.
Right.
Because I also know people are being told from Central America, oh, come, you'll get in, no problem. And they get to the border and everything that they were told was not true. They're being sent back. They're sitting in detention areas now in Mexico. How are they being treated down there, though, in Mexico? Are they sending them back to where they came from? I mean, the whole situation is so chaotic, and I need to remind people they're doing that because where they come from is dangerous, and they're fearful for their lives. I also pass no judgment, but that's what's going on.
I was talking to you about this a little bit.
Yes.
That horrible thing that happened in Sonora, Mexico, with those the Mormon family who was on their way to go shopping. I think in the United States, they were ambushed, they were killed, they were burned alive. That is happening constantly there. And those families now who, had been in Mexico for over 50 years are now moving their families back to the United States because they don't feel safe. So, we saw firsthand, and it seems like people are saying, well, yes, definitely come back to the United States because you are white, basically, is the way it feels. But if you saw that and you were touched by that, imagine this happening all day, every day, and no one talking about it on the news to these families that are trying to just live their lives there.
Could you imagine just going there? And I can't imagine for you, the first time that you went there after seeing what was going on in the news, seeing such chaos and these little faces that are so frightened. What happened the first time you went down there? How did you feel?
Elsa, so we do a big conversation about how, we're there to bear witness to what's happening. We're not there to sort of like just stare and take pictures, and it's not really for us. We're there for them. We're there to
right.
And I cry every single
Yeah.
time. I cry every single time. And now we've been 14 trips. I cry every single time. Because it is unthinkable to have these little family units, or just the moms or just the dads and these children, and to know that we are saying to them, basically, you're not important enough and you don't have the same chance that everybody else has. And for me,
Just because of where you're born.
right. So the only thing that separates me from them is where I was born.
Where you were born.
And I feel very strongly that there's no such thing as other people's children. And I felt that my whole life. And so when I see that and I go there and I see these families and I'm holding a child I usually find a child and just hold them while they're sleeping for a couple hours.
What a heart.
But my thought is that I can't believe that anybody would think anything other than, could you imagine just having to leave your home?
No.
It's a thought to me, like, I don't even want to, and I don't even want to go on vacation with my 3 children because it's just so stressful and there's craziness and they're little. And imagine walking with your 3 children through different countries, and with one, there are families with newborn babies. It is just like, if you have to leave your home, there's a reason. Nobody leaves a cozy environment that's safe and with their family. You have to think of the bigger picture.
It's so deeply complicated, though, because it's international governments. And it's really, at that point, everyone's sort of helpless. There's nothing we can do. Right? I mean, there's nothing, or is there? Okay,
I
you're giving me a
mean-
look. What can we do? What can we do? Because I have something to ask you in a moment after
Yeah.
your question. It's about. I have a feeling you're going to end up in Washington one day, and you're going to be speaking because. Little did you know, after crying from the news, this could be a really.
Well, I think there's two things. First, what I want to just tag on to what Zoe was talking about, which is, you go to these shelters in Mexico and you look around and you think, wow, like they're happy to be here. And it's awful. I mean, there was
Wow.
a chickenpox outbreak last time and kids are running around sick and they're living in tents. And it's like what you or I could not even imagine spending 1 hour in. And they're like grateful because they feel safer,
Safer.
So there's that aspect that I just want to tag on. In terms of what people can do, I think honestly being better educated on the topic, like what are we doing to these, the countries in the Northern Triangle? We just cut funding to countries in the Northern Triangle, right? So we're taking money out of the countries that need to be supported so that they can continue to, provide opportunities for people to be able to stay there. What are we doing with like climate? We're going to see a lot more climate change refugees right now. So if you care about borders and migration, like maybe you should start to care about climate change, because when you can't grow, harvests and crops in these countries where you used to be able to do that, there's nothing for you there. You're going to leave and you're going to go somewhere else. So like, I think that when you start to see the intersectionality of the different issues, then you will start to think like, it's not just this immigration issue. There's so much more on a global context about, LGBTQ rights and how, like, I mean, detention is just another word for incarceration, right? So like, how do you feel about mass incarceration? How are we dealing with that issue? Climate change, foreign aid. I mean, I think that those are all things that people would not necessarily start to tie into this immigration issue, but they're very connected.
I think people are just a lot of people are just going about their own lives, particularly in the U.S., and just trying to do what they do.
Yeah.
And when they hear all these terms, they get confused, or they just listen to the headline in the news.
Here's an easier
So we have to make it simple.
I'm going to dial it down. Here's the dial it down
that's what I
issue.
mean.
We need immigrant labor. Our economy will fail without immigrants.
I've always had a way to do that, but I'm not in government, so I can't say
So
anything.
for me, it's like, if you don't care about any of those other things, climate change, this, that, the other, it's like, I'm sure you care about the state of the economy in this country and your well-being and how we are advancing. And so we should care, because we need them to support all those industries that they are the backbone of that really make this country great. So that's really sort of.
Talk to me about when you take your busloads down. You go down now once a month, once every other month, but you've done a lot. So let's talk about line by line what you've done. And have you done it on this side of the border or the other side?
We've done it on the other side.
Okay, so
I mean, we do things on this side, but less and less. We went to go visit the rapid response shelter, and
Where was that?
In San Diego, and less there are less and less people there because of the Remain in Mexico.
Right, because they can't get over here.
So we, first of all, the best thing we can do before we even do anything with any of these shelters is we have our amazing partner Yolanda, who vets every single shelter. She knows I've never seen anything like it. We get to the border and she knows everyone there, and she calls herself the heels on the ground.
Right, this is systematically done.
Right, so she vets and goes through every single place that we have given grants to, money to. We could not do this without her.
And she
amazing.
lives
on both sides.
She lives on both sides.
So
Okay.
right now she's, doing amazing things. Not in LA.
Yeah.
But so basically we have built bathrooms, we have built kitchens, we've raised money for one of the shelters to be completely remodeled because it was literally decrepit, covered with mold.
How many kids
rocks
are there
falling
even?
down?
Families?
There are different
It just
amounts at
varies
any
by
time.
the day, but like shelters that are designed for 40 are housing around 145
Right.
people right now.
With one bathroom.
How many people come over there each day, would you say?
I mean, or how many people are being returned?
No, how many people are coming to the border in the first place? And then how many people are sitting? I'm just
I
curious.
mean, I wouldn't know exact numbers,
Yeah.
but I would say in the last year we've returned over 40,000 people.
Oh, that is heartbreaking. And then what? They just have to just walk back to
Well,
where
they
they're
get
from?
a number. Sometimes they get a number and then they're waiting for their turn. I mean, again, all these sort of little changes that a lot of people don't realize are having these detrimental effects on these families and putting them in.
The last time we went there, we funded a school. It is illegal for undocumented children to go to school in Mexico. So we gave a grant to this amazing foundation called Yes We Can, who basically retrofitted a bus and built a school next door to one of the shelters that we work with.
And the school is in the bus.
Yeah.
It's like a one-room schoolhouse.
So
It's
cute.
amazing.
It's good for what grades? Like just all kids?
It's for 5
Everybody.
to 12.
Yeah.
And we were there, and this little girl spoke to us, and she had gotten her number called with her mom, and she was 5 years old, and she came and told us about her experience where she was put in the
A hielera, which is like
which is an
box.
ice box. I
What?
just don't try to say Spanish words.
No, I'm with you. Although, can I just interrupt you? Why don't we all know Spanish here? I mean, like, I wasn't taught.
I mean, I understand
Fluently.
it, but
Yeah. Come on.
I don't like pretend to.
But
try
even
to.
my own kids, they
Right.
didn't become fluent even in school. I'm like, why aren't they learning from the age of like 1?
Right.
You know?
So this little girl spoke to us about her experience, and she was put in the ice box with her mom for 3 days. And she, this is a 5-year-old speaking, and she said it was scary. They did not have any blankets. They did not have any beds.
And that's on the American side.
Right. This is on the American side. That the guards slammed the door over and over and over again at 3:00 in the morning, to the point where the door broke. That the guards were really mean. The stories that you're hearing from a 5-year-old little girl, and her family chose to.
It's crimes against humanity is what it is.
Correct. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm just going to say this. Our trips to Mexico, I feel less heartbroken than when we visit the shelters in my country, because in Mexico there is a community aspect,
Right, and
to
on
these
this side,
shelters,
they're
and on this
just-
side it is abuse to me, and it doesn't matter. I don't care politics. None of it matters to me. I have voted for both parties. I have seen the good in all of it. It is not about politics.
I need to
It is
be-
about treating children and human beings with decency and kindness.
Right. So at the very least, even if they're waiting way longer than they should,
Right.
because it is complicated. It's complicated with what's going on in Mexico
Right.
and Central America. And
100%.
Clearly here. This isn't even about politics. What a great title.
This is not a
It's
black
not
and white
about
issue.
politics.
Right.
It's not it's about humanity, as you
Right.
say. And
Putting a child in an ice box, I can say as an American citizen, is very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, you know what the photo that got to me? Now you had yours, and I told you
Yeah.
this. The photo of the dad and his child found face down in the water.
Well,
you know.
the
That
thing-
one spoke to me, and I don't know how it doesn't speak to anyone, because and I realize I want to go to the other side that there's lots of awful things happening right here in our own country. It doesn't diminish that,
No.
but it doesn't lessen that either, right?
Well, I think the other thing about it is like there's a couple of things, which is like this dichotomy that people think exists. Like if you care about kids at the border, you don't care about like veterans or
right.
something, or you don't care. It's like you can have enough space to care about all these issues,
It's global.
It
And
is
there are
global.
enough
It's
people
global.
that will
Sure.
take those issues on.
Yeah.
There are enough
Yeah.
good people in this world.
And I think like that picture, sorry to
No.
interrupt, is the indication of desperation.
It's horrifying. Now,
When
that's
you
my
don't
horrifying picture.
When you don't know, when you've escaped horrible dangers, when you're in danger, when you're vulnerable, when you're sitting here with the number and you don't know when it's going to get called because you've seen people being sent back, you've seen that they're not respecting the laws that are on the books, that's when that's what happens. You become desperate and you say, I'm just going to try.
Can they stay there forever on that side?
I mean, not really, because Mexico has to issue a certain number of humanitarian visas, which the United States, provide aid for, but we have also cut back on those as well. So So you can't just sort of stay there undocumented also. So there's a lot of, as you said, it's complicated.
It's too complicated.
International. It's all these other things. So like, if we can only focus on like, let's just try to treat people humanely. Right.
But so like, if I'm not even focusing on any of the policies, the numbers, any of that stuff, and I'm just looking at being a mom, and how my children are the most important things in my life, beyond anything, before anyone, before anything, I would do anything for them. If I'm willing to get into a river and cross a river with a infant, then what does that tell us? What does that tell us? If you're going to risk your children's life and your life because you know that it's better than what you came from, then what is the conversation? What else has to be said?
I have something to say, and this crosses all administrations. I just need to be clear about that.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
And the way that the federal government processes these is so archaic. I believe their computers are sort of like PCs from like the first, the big fat kind. I don't even think they have proper computers. It's so long and laborious. You're nodding because you've probably seen it, right? You're like, how could this function? It doesn't function properly, and that's why it's taking so long to even vet these people, because it's absurd. And I'm sure on the other side, it's equally as bad. I mean, I wonder, you guys are getting some notoriety. Would it help? Would it do any good to go to Washington one day in an organized fashion and say, this is who we are. This is about humanity. How can we at least speed up the process to interview people, to bring them here or to send them back, whatever it is, because the way it's happening now, we all know that.
I mean, I think Elsa should run for office. That's like what I tell her all the time. And
it doesn't mean we're opening.
But she should go to.
Okay. No, right, but it doesn't mean we're opening all floodgates. Say, come on in, because you can't do that. It'd be complete chaos, right? That's not what you're saying.
No. Zero.
You're there.
By the way,
to
when
help.
we went on our first trip to San Diego, the families that were speaking to us, this was all done under Obama's administration.
Yeah,
it's
so
not like
I need to be clear.
Right. Like but it was different because they were deporting the parent. They weren't like separating the children and taking the children out of the home and putting them into facilities. It was a different, it wasn't great.
Wasn't great, but it was different.
It wasn't great. It was not great. And there needs to be a change, but I'm certainly not saying that this is all happening what I'm saying is this administration has allowed there to be a certain amount of cruelty that I've never felt as an American is who we are.
Plus, you've gone down there, you've seen it yourself.
Yeah.
So, and you're well researched with this, but I think I interrupted you. So you were talking, we wanted to run for office.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, let's talk about that.
That's my plan for her.
But why not? Honestly, you've got to start there to make change. Or otherwise, lots of busloads, Zoe, to just go over to DC and just put a face to these people.
I think it's hard because I think, as I said, if you haven't been there, it's very easy for you to feel a certain amount of distance and of like, it's not my problem, or it hasn't affected me, it hasn't touched me in a way. Even if you look at some of the situations where, for example, there is this issue of, we are deporting veterans, people who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces or Navy, who were either legal permanent residents or green card holders and have served multiple tours in Iraq or Afghanistan, came back, had PTSD, had a nonviolent charge, possibly for drugs, which is common, as we know, among sometimes veterans who have issues, and have been deported, right? So you will see an issue where people can kind of coalesce around, well, that's not right. Like, that doesn't sound like we should do that no matter how I feel, right? And so I think it's important to kind of lean into these topics that can bring us together, because we're so polarized and so divided right now that, I would never want to deport a veteran, regardless of their.
Can you imagine that? Seriously.
But you'll see.
That's not very American.
But you can see sort of people on both sides being like, that's not right. So like, that's why I want to lean into the humanitarian aspect of it. That's why we didn't call this is about politics. We called it this is about humanity, because we wanted to invite people into the conversation to
all
say
different kinds of people.
Yes, like I need you to just care about people. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
One
That's
little
really
kid.
it.
How about that? One little kid.
Just yeah.
Just startle the
I
kid.
mean, these trips, I think that is, I never in a million years imagined that I would be going to Tijuana or, traveling to Mexico to these shelters. Like that just never,
No.
but bringing people there who can have their moment of saying, oh, okay, I learned this today. And oh, I had this idea that it was this way, but oh my gosh, or I met this one family and I talked to them and I listened to their story, and that is why we are doing what we're doing. It's because, and it's always different people that come on our buses, and our hope is that not everybody has the same views. Our hope is that, there were some people once that Elsa brought that were kind of on the fence, and we're saying like,
That's so important to bring those people
Right.
more than anyone. They're going to go to
Right.
their people and say, you
Right.
know what I found out? I'm
Right.
telling you, more than anything.
Right.
If you keep bringing busloads, not that you are, busloads of people who are like-minded, but you
Also,
bring the
I think
other
that,
side.
When you see a situation and it feels so big, and you feel like there's no way that you could ever, I can't change that, so I'm just going to go on with my day and focus on this, or I can't make a difference. I'm proof that you can. We're proof that you can.
But and the other thing about it is like I'm not expecting everybody to feel like they have to come to the border, get on a bus, do this thing. But even if you think about the way you talk to your kids about these issues, if you're a parent, right? Like that, sometimes to me, people will be like, oh, like, well, that person was just a stay-at-home mom and they went, and I'm like, great, I need
Just a what?
yeah, exactly.
Just a what?
But also, like, those are the people who are raising the next generation. So, like, I want parents to think about, like, how am I talking to my kids about what is happening? Because that's the other thing. People are like, and I understand it. There is a age-appropriate way to talk to kids about everything, right?
If you just blanket it with kindness in general and no judgment. That's what I feel. You don't know why they had to come there. No judgment. They're kids the way you are, and you're kind of fortunate that you're here.
Yeah, sure.
And also, a lot of us had, my family came over from Italy, and they were gardeners, and they had to, get on a boat, and then for those people who say, well, they came over legally. Well, the truth is they really didn't. They were thrown on a boat due to poverty, same thing. 2 weeks on a boat, getting sick. And then they didn't know what they were going to face on the other end. Now, yeah, it was a time when they were letting immigrants in, but they too didn't know if they were going to shift back, So this has been going on since the beginning of time. It is a bigger problem. But you were saying that you were pretty philanthropic. You grew up as a philanthropic kid. You
Yes.
came from that family.
Yes.
Whose dad?
Henry Winkler.
I didn't hear that. Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
Oh, do we not love Henry Winkler? I mean, he's just darling.
He is.
Tell me what it's like growing up with mom and dad, because I do know that he's a very giving man. I read where he said, okay, you have to pick what moves you, right? Like,
Yeah.
did you grow up like that? Where
So I grew up. My mom started United Friends of the Children with Nancy Daly, and
why did I not know that it was with Nancy Daly?
Yeah.
Really?
So my mother started that, and that was a really big part of my life.
Yeah.
And then my parents also started the Children's Action Network.
Beautiful.
With a bunch of other really amazing people. And actually, this is funny because the Dalys invited us to they have a ranch in Malibu, and I took my kids this weekend to see all of their animals. And there were these two kids there, Jason and George, and their father works at the ranch, and their father wasn't there. And we were talking, and Ace said something. Ace is my son, and he said I brought a bunch of snacks, and George really liked these embarrassing gluten-free crackers that Ace loves. And he said, tell your dad to buy them. And he said, my dad's not here. My dad's in Mexico. And so what had happened was there's this program where you go back for two weeks to get all of your stuff there once you're going through the process of becoming a citizen.
And they wouldn't let him back.
He isn't allowed back.
Why? I need to understand because
didn't-
legally
honestly,
you didn't ask.
I didn't ask, but it was an interesting way for me to talk about, and I was talking to Ace, and I said, this is why I do what I do, and this is why I started This Is About Humanity, because this man is lucky enough to have a place where he will come home to a job and a lawyer and all that kind of stuff, but he was following the exact protocol.
Wow, that's a little scary to me. Is he
Yeah.
going to be allowed in? I mean, I'm sure that he's got people working for him on this side.
He has a lawyer, and they're working on it, but these are two kids who all their life have known their father here, and then all of a sudden, he's no longer here, and the mom is now working at.
So you grew up giving. I mean, mom
Always.
and dad. I
Yeah.
mean, what was like at the dinner table? I mean, did they really?
So we sat at the dinner table every night together, except on the weekends. And we would always talk about, my parents always made it clear that the life I lived was because of my dad's work, not because of me, and not because of, that he worked really hard to give us that life. But that was him, not us. That was not, we weren't just, we always were told that at any moment this could be taken away, and at any moment this could change. And
gratitude.
Gratitude,
I know that's a real buzzword these days, but it is true.
Right.
I mean, if you just sort of wake up feeling a little grateful that, okay, dad did well, and certainly in a business where it's easy not to do
Right.
well. And here we are,
Right.
What about your grandparents? Like, I always like to look at the lineage, how did...
My grandparents, so my dad's parents escaped Nazi Germany. My grandfather told my grandmother did not want to leave and told my grandmother that they were just going on vacation, and they escaped, and everybody else in their family was killed. So they moved to New York. He worked in the wood world
industry, whatever.
He wanted my dad to be
wherever
in
you can
wood.
get a job.
Yeah. And then my grandparents, on my mother's side, my grandfather was a dentist. They were just good people, but there wasn't like this intense conversation always. When in my family, there was with my parents, it was a big conversation. For every holiday we would give back
Something.
At a really young age. If I were to get something, I would have to give something. So
Was dad a funny guy growing up with him?
I mean,
come on. People probably came to the house.
He's a great dad. He's an amazing dad. I wouldn't say he's like the funniest person I've ever met, but he's amazing. And, he didn't feel listened to at all by his parents. So the rule in our family growing up was no matter what, you could say anything you were feeling. You might still be grounded after, but you were able to plead your case. And he was he is an amazing father, and my mother is an amazing mother. And I got to watch her work her ass off for people that didn't have a voice. And so my dad jokes that it laid dormant in me until I was 37. But
Yeah, but you had your own kids, you were a teacher, and
Yeah.
something just clicked. But I
Right.
believe in that. You can't just get involved in something that doesn't feel
no,
right
and people
to you.
ask me all the time, like, why this, why not? There's so many homeless, and I say, you are so right. And and I believe that is also a huge issue.
So please help them.
Right.
Because but that's a whole nother
But this
issue.
is something that spoke to me like organically from my heart. And I was so blessed to find two partners who were able to have the experience and I was just like, just give me a job and I'll do it, and somehow I've become the fundraiser of the group, which is
She's
shocking.
the director of development.
Director of Development. I love the title.
Yes.
Director of Development, Zoe
Trust me.
Winkler Reinis. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. That's
Yeah.
terrific. Okay, so a little bit. So you sell these on the website, right? I love this.
Well, they're sold through our partner, the Little Market. This is About Humanity candle, and we love partnering with the Little Market because they are an organization that supports marginalized women.
That's right.
All around the world. So these are poured by refugees from Burma, and we also have a tote. Let
me get it out. I've got all my goodies
The
here. They
tote
brought-
is here.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, so you can go to thelittlemarket.com and buy these, and this goes directly to support the work that we do in the shelters in Mexico. So as you kind of alluded to, but I wanted to make clear, these shelters are not getting support from the government on either side of the border.
Nothing. And
Nothing.
all proceeds.
So
all
the proceeds are like, this shelter will literally call my sister-in-law and be like, we do not have groceries this week. And then we will get them groceries that week. And so
Will you also talk about our fund?
yeah, so we have a fund at the International Community Foundation.
The International. And this is all on your website?
Yes.
The International
Community Foundation.
Community
So
Foundation.
you can make a donation, get a tax deduction, which is so important. But then what we get to do is we get to transfer that money into a Mexican bank account to fund these construction projects, because that's the other thing. People are like, what do you need? I'll donate, but we can't cross donations. They're taxed at 60%. There's a disincentive to do that because they want to obviously stimulate the local economy. So we are able to
That's great.
go buy new tents for these families, 5 people to 1 tent in a semi-covered shelter.
Didn't you also like put a roof
we
over
put a
a
roof
certain
over
shelter?
one of the
Yeah.
other shelters that was getting
Rained on.
Yeah, rained on with rocks
awful.
and whatnot. So
God.
so we're able to do these really important projects to make their lives better.
Oh, we also have these necklaces.
Oh yes, these humanity necklaces.
What? How much are those?
ArielGordonJewelry.com.
Yeah, go to arielgordonjewelry.com.
Really?
And
that's on your website too? I think
Yes.
that's really a
Yeah.
beautiful necklace,
Yeah.
and I want one. I'm going to get one of those
Amazing.
as well.
Thank you.
what was actually, Ariel told me that
It says humanity on the necklace,
of
by
all
the way.
the sort of collabs she's done, she sold the most, the fastest of ours. And I think
I think
that
it's
goes
beautiful.
to show that people want to help. And if we can give them a super concrete, easy way to help,
Yeah.
and that's what we aim to do with total and complete
Transparency.
then we've done our job.
Yeah, and you don't take any money from this, clearly.
Yeah.
This is all about going to the need. So I have to be clear about that too, okay?
Yeah.
And it goes, look, even if this is not your thing to support, there's a lot out there to support if you want to be a part of, kindness and humanity. It does matter.
Yeah.
It does. If you do a little travel outside of our country, wow, it's amazing the need going on. And I'm not talking staying in like a 5-star resort somewhere, but
Right.
really go somewhere and see how people are living just a mile out of that resort. It's kind of shocking. I mean, I've done that. I think I told you on the phone, we travel a tremendous amount. I don't like to stay in the nice little hotels. I make them all schlep somewhere else. And they're like, okay, they actually like it.
Yeah.
They enjoy seeing how people are living.
Yeah.
So, they're not living the way we do, and there should be no judgment. So thank you so much for being here. How about a shout out to whatever you want to say to people to engage them, to get them
Go for it, babe.
to donate?
Shout out. I mean, I think what you were saying is true, which is when you don't know what to do, like just do this. Get a necklace, get a tote, get a candle, give them as gifts for the holidays, give and give back. And I think that you'll start to see that you're going to gain so much more when you engage in things like that. And even if you don't want to do that, like have a conversation with your family, with your kids, with your friends.
I was going to say it's not even about donating. It's about raising the awareness, because I can't tell you how many people are like, what? We had no idea. What do you mean? What's happening? Like, how is this even happening? So raising the awareness and becoming educated yourself to then educate other people in a really sort of non-partisan, non-judgmental way. Just here are the facts and this is what's happening, and here are some easy ways you can help.
You said something to me that really spoke to me, and there's a lot of them, but you're really not going to want to cross borders and go from one country to another, get into Mexico and be treated the way you are, unless you're in dire straits of dying. So these are not the people going under tunnels and passing drugs. These are families and little kids and good people who do want to come here and work. And you're right about the labor. You're right about that. And instead of sneaking people over and using the labor and treating them poorly, let's find a way to do something legally where you can get them in quickly, people who want to do the labor. And I'm with you. But I'm not an elected official. Maybe that's your corner.
I
so.
mean, we'll see. One day maybe.
Yeah. So thanks a lot
gonna
for
kill
being
me.
here. Yeah. I really appreciate it. I believe in what you do. I see it in you. And this has become a big cause for you, both of you, all three of you.
Thank you.
How many
so
people
much.
are helping you, real quick? I know you have these huge fundraisers and like it's sellout only. I'm like,
three of us.
I know, but I'm like, my God, it's like I even try and get a ticket to your fundraiser and I can't even go.
Well, we
because
have one
there's-
coming up in April.
Yeah.
We'll save one for you.
And Jose
would you save
Andreas
it
is
for
going
me?
to be the
Beneficiary.
for World Central Kitchen. We work with them a ton. We work with Immigrant Defenders Law Center.
They're fantastic.
incredible.
I've done stories on them.
Yeah, they're incredible, and they're our
amazing.
partners as well. And every dinner we do represent, we benefit them as well as another cause. So
Come to a dinner.
Yeah,
Reach
come.
out.
Yeah. Just,
you can follow us on Instagram at This Is About Humanity.
Yeah, great stuff that they're posting, and you show the face of a lot of the people, and you show also the school and just everything else that you're helping. So yeah, This Is About Humanity, the website .org, right?
.com.
This .com? Oh, it's a .com. This is about humanity.com, and then on Instagram, same thing. This is about humanity. Great name. I love it. Get a candle. These are great gifts, right? The little necklace. So thank you so much. And everybody, thanks for
you.
tuning in. Please just do something. I hope this speaks to you. It spoke to me. Oh, shout out to your mom cares as well. They're friends, friends of ours and friends of yours.
The
So
best.
we're wearing our bracelets. I love them.
I love them. I need more.
You do. I know. I know, right?
I need one.
Yeah, I know.
So
We need some.
I say for the
Sharon, we need
holidays,
some.
how about a
Patsy.
bag, a candle,
Yeah.
and some bracelets? Why not? Your mom cares. So thanks to Sharon and to Patsy. Great people. So thank you for tuning in to Deborah Kobylt Live. And We will see you on our next show. Coming up, we've got Susan Anton. She's going to be appearing at Vitello's over in Studio City. So we'll be talking to her next. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.